it's about 8 o'clock, or actually it's 8 o'clock Central. So let's get started with this PMP Live Seminar Series. I'm going to go through a time management topic. So you should be able to look at this and see that we're talking about sequence activities. Now, sequence activities is a very important topic. It comes from time management. So let's get started with the approach here. I want to let you know that you do get credit now, one PDU, one professional development unit for attending, one PDU, and you can get these for qualifying for the exam. And then also, if you are now a PMP, you can come back and listen to these. We'll talk about key terms. We'll review PMP-like questions, and we'll do a short Q&A to address any questions or concerns. So, first of all, sequence activities. Remember that we are in the time management knowledge area. All right, again, let me repeat that. We are in time management. We are in the planning process group. So sequence activities, just as a better perspective here, we're coming from the work breakdown structure. We need to break the WBS into workable activities. It is the process of identifying and documenting the relationships among the project activities. I use a real simple example that can help you here. Number one, let's just say you want to wash clothes. Well, you're going to have to go get the clothes first. Then you sort the clothes. Then you load the washer. Eventually you load the dryer. But at some point, you could be washing and drying at the same time. So these are activities. Remember that. These are activities. Why do we have the sequence activities? The key benefit is that it defines the logical sequence of work to obtain the greatest efficiency given all project constraints. A constraint, by the way, just so we know, I know you probably know, but just always good to talk about it. A constraint is a limitation, okay? So it's a limitation. Don't forget the triple constraint. Time, cost, scope, triple constraint. So we have time, cost, and scope. A constraint is limitation. We want to sequence activities. Who does this work? The project team. The project team does the work. All right, good there. Move on. Get out of this thing here. Okay, so we have something called a PDM, a precedence diagramming method. This is a technique that's used for constructing a schedule model. Okay, don't forget schedule model. It's a very important word there, in which activities are represented by nodes. Let me just put this here for you. I don't like to just talk in generalities. So activity A here, and then activity B here, like that. B, and then activity C and D. Okay, whatever. It could go on and on. But these nodes, okay, so these nodes are important because what I'm displaying here is something called activity on arrow. So we have a sequence of activities that build on each other. Don't forget, and it's very important for the exam, the project team must be involved with this process. It cannot just be the project manager, okay? So these activities are represented by nodes and are graphically linked by one or more logical relationships. Remember that we have what's called mandatory relationships. Mandatory means that something has to happen before we do something else. A good example is something like regulatory. We must ensure that we follow the legal compliance. But it can also mean something like this. It could be like, for example, you order equipment. Okay, so order equipment is an activity. You cannot install. Let me say here. order equipment here. You cannot install the equipment until you get it, right? So you order it and then install. So a mandatory requirement or activity is ordering the equipment. The install happens later. Got some background, so I'm going to go ahead and mute. You guys can mute yourselves to the right of your name. Sure, I can do it here. If you go to the right of your name, you can mute yourself. Okay, and then you kind of unmute. All right, finish to start relationship. Okay, you can look at what's there, know that there's a predecessor and a successor. So in this case, this is the successor. In this case, this is the predecessor. So something that happens before is a predecessor. Finish to start is the most commonly used PDM approach on the exam or relationship. So this means that something has to finish before I start. For example, I have to order the equipment before I can install it. This is a finish to start relationship. A mandatory dependency I've already talked about. We have to get approval from the regulatory office before we take action. So approval has to happen, and then we can take action. We cannot move forward until we've gotten that approval. Okay, so it's really important. There's probably 3 or 4 topics or questions just from this page on the exam. One of them is right there. The finish to start is the most commonly used approach regarding relationship types. All right, here's the question number 1. The project manager is engaged in sequencing the project activities. The preferred approach for this process is finish to start, and we just talked about that. During a recent planning meeting, the schedule manager, all right, so we got a schedule manager here, suggested that the team review the project scope statements to learn more about the physical characteristics of the work, okay? This is a key word, physical characteristics. What type of information does the schedule manager suggest might be found in the project scope statement, okay? So now the project scope statement, what are we going to find in there? Is it the project scope description? Is it the vendor analysis? Is it the product scope description? Or is it process related? All right, take a stab at it. What do y'all think? What type of information does the schedule manager suggest to be found in the project scope statement? And it's related to this key word, physical. Physical. So what's obviously not the answer? What do you think is not the answer? All right. I know you're thinking about it. Well, I don't think it's vendor analysis because I think that's a distractor. Process related is a distractor. So we're dealing with project scope description and product scope description. All right, I'm going to show you the answer so I can explain it. It is product. Let me tell you why. I'm going to go back to the option here. When the question talked about physical characteristics, it told you that it's about product scope description, product. Let me explain this. So I'm building an airport. Let's just say I'm going to build an airport. All right, here's an airport. So the product scope description explains the physical characteristics of the airport, like the runways. And this is not obviously meant to be exact, but you've got restaurants, you've got lounges, you've got terminals inside the airport, you have emergency medical personnel, and so on. And these are the runways. So this is the physical characteristics. The physical characteristics are associated with product. Don't forget that very important question. Physical characteristics. All right. You have to kind of know that because it gives the answer away now. This is a common question on the exam. You have to know physical. Project scope, on the other hand, PROJ, project scope, is associated with the work. What is the work? For example, the design of the airport, the manpower, the woman power, whatever power it takes to get the work done. All right. Now, all right, if you have questions, you can ask them about it. I think I'm going to make this a little bigger. All right, while creating the project network diagram, the project manager is committed to identifying the possible dependencies, such as mandatory, discretionary, external, and internal, based on analogous project experience, okay, keyword. The project manager is comfortable handling internal dependencies because they are normally inside the project team's control. All right? Which of the following stakeholders determines which dependency is internal or external? Now, I already gave you the answer. Either the project team, the project manager based on feedback from the customer, or the project manager based on feedback from the sponsor. All right, any idea? Okay, but let me help you. So the project team is a pretty good answer. The project manager is not a great answer because this means that the PM is basically acting in a unilateral approach. Not a good answer. The project manager based on feedback from the customer, not a great answer because the customer has no idea what's going on regarding, mandatory, discretionary, internal, and external dependencies. Now, the sponsor, same thing. It's just outside. Remember, the sponsor pays for the project. The customer gets the unique product, service, or result. So it has to be between A and B. All right, so here's the answer. So you know, it's the project team. The team has the knowledge and expertise to determine the dependencies for the project. Don't forget that now. The team, they are knowledgeable. PMI in the PMBOK guide likes that answer. The team must have what's called buy-in. If the team has buy-in, we have a pretty good chance of meeting the expectations. Okay, so just be cognizant that I've given you a couple of questions, but they're all interrelated. Okay, I hope that helped a little bit. All right, so I got through those. Now I got a few more folks coming in. All right, any questions so far? Tell me if you have questions on the exam. I know some folks got here a little bit later, but if I've got this recorded, so I'm going to send it to you anyway. What questions do y'all have? When are you taking the exam? You can type, you can talk. Anybody, when are you taking the exam?
I want to take it by December.
All right, December. All right, what kind of plan do you have for that?
I'm on a 2-week plan. I mean, I'm still working on my plan.
All right, Bridget, you're working on your plan. All right. Where's everybody from? Just so I know everybody. Where are you guys from? Bridget, where are you from now?
Tulsa.
Tulsa, Oklahoma. You stay away from the.
No, Tulsa. I'm from the city.
Oh, from the city. Okay, all right, gotcha. Tulsa, Bridget. Sorry about that, Bridget. Who else? I thought you said Tulsa for a minute. Hey, Bridget, did you stay away from the hurricane?
Yes, I stayed away from the hurricane and bought all the groceries and didn't even eat them. So.
I saw where the supermarket was all out of water.
Well, luckily we had water from last year, so we didn't get any water, but got a bunch of junk food.
All right, who else? Who else is here? Uh, who else? Saeed, where are you from? All right, Saeed's not talking. I got
I,
M. Who else, Saeed? All right, M. Morris, where are you from? Sorry.
I'm from Los Angeles, California.
All right, how's everything going in LA?
Okay.
All right, when are you gonna take the exam?
Before the end of the year, before they switch over to the new test.
All right, but make sure you take it a little bit earlier now. Take it around late November, early December. That way you got a chance to retake if you have to. Not that you have to, but in case you want to, right?
Oh yes. Right now I'm in a prep course.
Okay.
It's once a week. I'm not sure if we're. I don't know. I don't know if I feel like the prep course is helping, or maybe it's just the teacher.
Yeah. Well, remember these seminars. Remember, every one of these now is recorded, and some of you know because you've been to some of my classes. You know, I covered 2 questions today, but they cover multiple questions. So I've taken 6 of the PMI exams. I kind of figure things out a little bit. So just know that when I write these questions, they're designed to help you with a lot of questions, not just one. Make sure you show up the other. What's your first name?
Marcia.
Marcia. Make sure you show up to the other one, so I can go back and listen to all the other ones. Okay.
Okay, I didn't know you could. I happened to see this link in a LinkedIn comment that I was reading.
Okay. All right. But go back
about the test.
Yeah, but go ahead and send me an email, and I'll send you the link to all of them. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You'll do well now. They stay focused now. All right. So,
I think a question I have is I know there's that. Well, our teacher has shared with us that spreadsheet that you kind of memorize to get the IT. Yes. I don't know how. Is there an easy way to memorize that?
Yeah, here's the easy way. Don't memorize it. All right. So here's, and those of you who have been to my classes, you know that I don't teach memorization of the items because there are way too many of them. And remember, the exam is going to test you roughly on like 10 to 15 of them. So why would you spend all your brain power on something you're not going to be tested like crazy on, right? So instead, go back, look at the questions, the way I put those together for you. Know certain techniques as far as, you know, for example, let me give you a point. So if there's only one output, example on that, there's a process called identify stakeholders. Okay, that's 13.1. All right, let me write it down so I'm not just speaking here on my own here. All right, 13.1 is identify stakeholders. It only has one output. That's called the stakeholder register. When there's only like one output, I would know it because it would be something that could be on the exam. So I will tell you right now, and I don't know who your instructor is, do not go and memorize all the ITOs. It is a waste of time. Be aware of them now. Be aware of the ITOs. Let me give you a little quick lesson that I give in my classes now. ITOs. This is the ITOs discussion. An input is what do I need? So like I'm going to work on a process. Let me call this process develop project charter. Develop project charter. What do I need? What do I need? For example, I need the business case. This is one input. The business case helps me because it tells me, hey, I'm going to work on this project. Why do I need it? I need the business case to work on the process called Develop Project Charter. All right, a tool and technique. This is the most popular tool and technique in the PMBOK. Expert judgment. Well, I need to talk to you about it because you might know more about the customer. Okay, so that's a tool and technique. And just know that the expert judgment always is a tool and technique. Now, output, what do I have when I'm done? When I'm done with the process called Develop Project Charter, what do I have left? You know what I have left? I have the project charter. So you see, input is what do I need? All right, what do I need is my input. How am I going to do it? How am I going to develop the project charter as a tool and technique? I said expert judgment is one. And what do I have left? Well, the actual project charter. Now, it's not always as intuitive, but this is a super technique that we use in my classes to help people prepare. But again, I will tell you, be comfortable with the ITOs. Do not memorize them because there are 10 knowledge areas now. Integration, right? Scope, time, cost, quality, HR, risk, HR, communication, risk, procurement, and stakeholder management. Now, when I got to time management, I stopped memorizing because my brain no longer could function. So there's just far too many ITOs. I'm not sure why you're being told to memorize all those. I don't know. I don't get the logic. Was there an explanation for that?
No, when I asked, and he didn't really provide one, so.
Well, a lot of times if you kind of don't know the exam that well, and how you study. Now, I know he probably passed it, but if you...
But I think he passed it a long time ago.
Yeah. So, I teach people to pass this exam. I have students that pass it once a week now. So this is the way I teach the course. The course is very direct. And the other thing on this is that we don't teach people to waste time now. I teach people 40 to 60 hours, and you're ready for the exam. A lot of study time now, but I'd rather study 40, 60 hours than it would take me 40 to 60 hours just to memorize the ITOs. And here's the other thing I tell students is, all right, so I memorized all the ITOs. The only problem is when I go take the exam, I have to remember that.
Yep.
And that's the problem. My brain doesn't function where I can remember all this.
Well, right now he's got us working out of 3 books. So of course PMBOK, then Rita's book, and then Philip's book.
All right. So you got the PMBOK, and all right. So because I'm not teaching that class, otherwise I would steer you in a different direction. But I'm going to tell you what to do with what you have right now. Okay. So Rita and then Philip's, right?
Yes.
Right. So what I would do is I would throw away the Philip's book because I don't know anything about it. I would focus on that one. And then I would focus about 80% of my time there on the Rita and 20% of your time here.
Okay.
And I would get rid of that resource. And then just come to our center. Because I could tell you to get rid of the PMBOK entirely and do 100% Rita. But I actually find value in the PMBOK. So now I have a lot of students tell me they never open the PMBOK. So, but I'll tell you right now that the way I prepared with those 2 books. Now we have these little sessions that we do here, and by just going through those 17, 20 sessions we have, you probably could answer 20 to 30 questions right just by those sessions. All right?
Okay. What do you think about the simulators? He had suggested a simulator, but I was curious if you thought that helped.
Well, we have simulator. We have a simulator for a company that has 600 questions. Obviously, they're helpful, but what I want to do is I don't want it to overwhelm you. I don't want to overwhelm you. So remember the Rita book. You've got the Rita book, right?
Yep.
That's 400 questions right there. Have you gone through all of those?
No, not all of them. For some reason we skipped chapters 1 through 4. He said we would go back to them at the end. and then we're on chapter 9, which was, I think, the HR chapter.
HR, yeah, HR. Now, I don't necessarily agree with skipping the first ones because, remember, that's foundational knowledge that helps you on the future ones. But
yeah, he said we would go back, and I'm like, why? But it's, you know.
That's okay. I mean, maybe he's got a reason for that. I'm not sure, but I would do all of them. So I will tell you now that the only study material that I used when I passed the exam in '08 was the reader book.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's all I studied, and I passed it pretty, not easily, but I passed it. You know, I passed it. Now, you know, you pass it, and then later on you tell people it was easy. But so I want you to be careful not to be overwhelmed.
I think it's very overwhelming right now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I know I teach this stuff all the time. I know, but the main thing is get away from it a little bit and come to these sessions, or just kind of relax a little bit. You'll see how when you go back and listen to this recording, I only did 2 questions today, but there's no doubt that the technique that I showed you can work on a lot of questions. All right. How many people are in your class?
Well, it started off with 15, and it's down to like 5.
So you're a survivor.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, we'll follow up with you, but you've got a lot of material, so just reach out to me if you have questions.
Okay. I think what makes it hard is because I'm currently a project manager, and I just don't employ these techniques, so I have to keep switching my mind from what the book says. I have to focus on that versus what I do in my normal day-to-day job.
Yeah. So that's what I call the make-believe world of PMI.
Yeah.
So PMI has a make-believe world that everything's fine, but we know in the real world it doesn't work that way. So we have to answer. This is why I said the PMBOK's a good resource, because sometimes I say, let me give you an example. I don't like to speak in generalities. So PMI will say, hey, you just completed the planning process group. What should the project manager do next? Well, if one option is go back and review the planning process group, that is a wrong answer, because PMI just said the project manager has just completed the planning process group, and we need to interpret that to mean we completed the planning process group and it was done 100% correct. But as you know, I go back and review stuff all the time because I don't think it was done 100% correct. But on the exam, you have to assume you were told it was done right. And that's hard to do because it goes against our nature, right?
Yeah.
All right. And so let me see. So let me see what else I was going to tell you. I was going to tell you something else. I don't remember anymore. But just kind of follow through and send me an email so I can send you the links, all right?
Okay.
All right. Anybody else? Sahid, do you have any questions? All right. Sahid doesn't have any questions. And there's, I think it's D Coopers. Any questions there? Okay, guys. I appreciate y'all attending. I'm going to send you the link. And you know that I'm available. If you have any questions, you can shoot me an email, okay? Hey, Bridget, just to answer your question, 40 to 80 hours. So 40 to 80 hours to study for the exam. So now listen, I'm studying for one exam right now. It's called the PMP. This is the Portfolio Management Professional exam, the PMI exam now. I'm allocating 30 to 50 hours. I started Saturday. I'm taking the exam in a couple weeks. The reason I did it is because Labor Day is coming up, and I can put in about 7 or 8 hours over the weekend on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's crazy, but that's the only time I can get time, you know. All right. Okay, guys. Thank you for attending. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.